It was barely 2 weeks ago that this video was uploaded, going through some of the biggest moments in AFL history when players had the chance to win a game after the siren, but missed. Well, in round 21, we had another after the siren shot to decide a game. Carlton came from nowhere against Collingwood in Scott Pendlebury's 400th, kicking the last 5 goals of the game. A scrap kick out from a stoppage with seconds left landed in defender Mitch McGovern's hands. Now he did get a lower leg to the head, which looked to daze him, but he still took the shot. It wasn't even close, going out on the full from about 40 metres out on a slight angle. It was the first after the siren shot in 2024, but going through the past few seasons, we've actually had quite a few, and most of the time, the player does conquer the moment and kick the game-winning goal. From memory, the one that sticks out the most was the first showdown in 2022. Both sides coming into the round 3 game with 0 wins and 2 losses, and both were under extreme pressure. It was an Adelaide home showdown, but it was Port Adelaide for most of the game that held a 3 to 4 goal buffer. After being up by 13 points at 3/4 time, the Power had extended the lead by a goal and there was only 10 minutes left. A scrappy kick by Lachlan Scholl kept Adelaide in it, but 5 minutes of game time passed. A comeback looked unlikely at this stage until a complete stoppage breakdown had Elliot Himmelberg by himself, and through a bit of luck he sneaked in a critical goal. 35 seconds later he kicked another and the game was back on in true showdown fashion. A technical 50-metre penalty against Josh Rochelle gave veteran Travis Boak the chance to ice the game. He didn't come close and he was left of the goalpost the entire way. With seconds left, the Crows gave one final prayer.
Almost Rochelle, Murphy, he did! It's going to be after the siren! Well, Jordan Dawson is the perfect replacement.
It was so clever by Lachlan Murphy to go off and give the ball to Jordan Dawson. He was traded to Adelaide from Sydney, and a goal would be some way to introduce yourself to the Crows fan base.
It's only one man to cover himself in glory. Just coming back. And got there! The scenes of the Adelaide Oval.
Somehow the ball magically came back and made Dawson the hero. It was one of the greatest showdowns ever, as Adelaide won by 4 points. Brisbane were denied the chance to beat Geelong in round 2 of 2022 due to a horror umpire mistake. Zach Bailey clearly tackled Mark Blitzavs holding the ball, but the Cats got away with the win. The following week, the Lions would get a chance to win a thriller. They were down for 117 minutes in total against Collingwood in round 3 at Marvel Stadium. Midway through the second, they were down by as much as 25 points. But they never let the league get out of control, and going into the final term, Collingwood were up 59 to 51. Goals from Joe Danaher and then a booming left foot kick by Daniel Rich reined in the margin to a single point. But some magic by Josh Dacos put Collingwood back in control by 7 points with 7 minutes remaining. Jared Lyons' point with 2 minutes and 45 seconds remaining had the scoreline at 72 to 67. The ball essentially pinged from Brisbane's forward pocket to the halfway line for the next 2 minutes of play. Collingwood just couldn't get it in their half and locked the ball in. A risk up the middle ended with Rich having the ball in his hands, who chipped the ball to guess who? Zach Bailey. A week after he should have had the shot to win the game against Geelong, he now had the opportunity to do the same thing against Collingwood.
Winning goal. They're 5 points down. Every boy dreams of this. Directly in front. He's got it. He's got it. Brisbane have won.
He nailed it. The ramifications were significant, as Collingwood would go on to lose their next 4 games and lead to Nathan Buckley stepping down as senior coach. You could argue the greatest single kick in 2023 came in round 16 on a wet and miserable night at the MCG. It came from a Port Adelaide player's boot as they were on their way to winning a club record 13 straight games. Their round 16 game against Essendon was the opportunity to win their 12th straight at the time, but it would be a struggle with Daniel Visentini making his debut in the ruck, who at the time was clearly not fully ready for the AFL. The game was goal for goal up until 3/4 time, with Essendon holding on to a 9-point lead, but the X factor of Port Adelaide's midfield had impact, with Connor Rozee kicking the second of what would be 4 straight Port Adelaide goals. It would also be his 3rd goal for the match. The 9-point deficit was now a 17-point lead for the Power with 7 minutes left. The momentum then shifted. Jai Caldwell got the first, kicking a great snapping goal before a high-flying Langford got the margin back to 5 points. The man of the moment in Caldwell took another mark and seemed to have kicked the game winner. In a frantic last minute, no one could find clear space. Nick Martin's hack kick out landed in Dan Houston's lap, but from beyond 50 metres, with a wet ball and fatigue, the kick would have to be perfect.
The streak to protect. It's a long goal.
Well, it basically was perfect. The score review confirmed the goal, and somehow Houston had bombed the ball 55 plus metres from an angle with a heavy, wet Sherrin. It was in 2012 when rugby turned Gold Coast Suns marquee signing Carmichael Hunt kicked a huge game-winning goal against Richmond. 10 years later, another Sun will do the same thing to the same opponent. The 2022 Round 17 game between Gold Coast and Richmond was critical in the season. At the time, the Suns were 7-8, while Richmond were 9-6. During the third quarter, it looked like a cruisy win for the Tigers. Jack Graham's goal at the start of the third term saw the Suns down by 40 points, and they were playing poorly. They kept hanging in and went into the final quarter down by 28 points. But when Jack Riewoldt snapped the set shot right on the boundary, it felt like the Tigers would be able to keep them at bay. Almost 8 minutes went off the clock, and finally Gold Coast Sam Day was able to kick another goal, followed by Matt Rowe's set shot a few minutes after. The momentum had swung, and Richmond was all of a sudden nervy and holding on. A high ball in was defended poorly, and Mabior Chol, who is now a Hawk but was a former Richmond player, bobbled through an open goal. Hardwick couldn't believe it as Day once again marked and then chipped in board to Noah Anderson.
For the greatest victory in Gold Coast history, he kicks straight. What?
The Suns did it again to Richmond. Anderson kicked the clutch goal and played one of his career best games, finishing with 26 disposals and 2 goals.